At American Family Insurance, we help protect what you've achieved so you can fearlessly go after your dreams. Find out how we're helping others pursue their dreams and declare your own at amfam.com/dreams. American Family Insurance. Insure carefully, dream fearlessly.
American Family Insurance Company, American Family Mutual Insurance Company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin, 53783.
Of the Pack podcast.
Experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game ticket from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay, or just go to their website, theticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
Well, welcome aboard, everyone, to Pulse of the Pack. It is Monday night podcasting, 6 p.m. on Monday, and it is officially game week. The Green Bay Packers take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in real football this Sunday at noon in Jacksonville, Florida. And this is our NFL preview show. I am Jacob Westendorf, your host. Very excited about this week being game week, of course. And joining with me, as always, is Jason Perrone. Jason, are you nearly as excited as I am?
I am. If I was more excited, I'd be twins. I never understood that statement, but we'll go with that. It's my dad joke comment of the day. I'm ecstatic. It's been a long off season. Last season was very disappointing. Been excited to get back at it. And this show alone is fun to do, Jacob. I remember last year was like our second or third show that we did after reviving Pulse. And not only that, but we got some fun stuff to talk about on this show with a certain situation that's taken place with a certain team because of certain people.
Well, you keep using the word certain. I'm going to start thinking you sound like John Rahor. But nonetheless, you are right. Since we last recorded, the Packers' dream of 23-0 is dead. They lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, blah, blah, blah. Nobody really cares. The last preseason game, I watched it as lip service. Wasn't very interested in it. It just is what it is at that point. But this is real football. The final roster cut down. It was a run-of-the-mill day on Saturday. I was watching Michigan beat up on Hawaii, and then starting the Wisconsin and LSU game at Lambeau Field. Great game, by the way. Congratulations, Badgers fans. That was awesome. One of the best games I can remember as far as an atmosphere from what I could tell on TV. That place was loud and rocking for that Wisconsin Badgers team that upset the number 5 team in the country, the LSU Tigers. Very good game to watch. But I got a text from one of our former colleagues or current colleagues. I know he does some stuff from time to time, but Matt Bove, and it was just very simple. WTF Ted. And we were talking about how Joe Callahan was a waste of a roster spot and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, okay, what could this possibly be? So I scrolled up to Twitter and went, wait, what? The Green Bay Packers released all-pro guard Josh Sitton. And Josh Sitton is now a member of the Chicago Bears. He signed last night a 3-year contract. He got a slight raise and about $10 million guaranteed on his new deal. And we're going to dive into this because we were just going to make this a preview show, but it's not every day an all-pro just gets released for the hell of it. And you're kind of going to get my opinion on this here in a minute. But, Jason, I know I'll be lengthy on this. So what was your thoughts, opinions, everything on the release of Josh Sitton?
Well, that is a loaded question by itself because it's been a couple days. There's so many things that have happened since the news broke on Saturday that the Packers were trying to trade him and subsequently would release him if they couldn't find a trade partner, which I'm just going to throw this out there. I've said it on Twitter before. If you're going to leak the fact that, and I get there's unnamed sources and maybe the team didn't do this on purpose, but if you're going to let it get out there that you're shopping a player in a trade or you're going to release him, you're not going to make a trade unless you're Bill Belichick somehow. So that ish has to stop. It was obvious that no team was going to trade for Sitton and his salary or current pay, although it turns out the Bears valued him a lot more than the Packers did. They ended up paying him more than he was scheduled to make this year on his last year in Green Bay. But, you know, I've said, and I don't know if I've said it as much on the record, but I've always been of the thought that Sitton should definitely be the one the Packers probably should part ways with after the season. I never, ever pictured it being prior to the season or him getting cut. And if he's going to get cut, definitely not less than 1 week before season opener. So it's odd. Obviously, there's something going on. Many theories have been shared on Twitter. I have to think there's obviously some disagreement between Sitton, his agent, and the Packers with regards to his value, his future, his contract, and that is at the center of this whole situation. So you can point to, oh, he melted down in the locker room. He said something inappropriate to Coach Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy doesn't, he isn't on the same page with Sitton. Aaron Rodgers isn't a huge fan of Sitton. All those speculative, and I'm not endorsing any of those ideas. I'm just throwing out what I've heard. Regardless, the Packers knew they were going to need to move on. It's obvious they weren't going to bring Sitton back next year. So at best, he was with the team this season, and I think the Packers saw the potential for some internal issues that they just didn't want to deal with keeping Sitton around. It was obvious that his overall demeanor with regards to his contract situation was not something that they wanted around some of their other players. And Sitton has been a very stand-up guy. He's been a good teammate. He's been a good player, a good supporter of the team since the day that he arrived in Green Bay. So that's what makes this even more difficult because he's one of the quote-unquote good guys on this Packers team. He's a two-time Pro Bowl player. He's been an All-Pro or second-team All-Pro. I mean, the Bears are getting a good player that's got at least a year or two or maybe a few more in the tank. I do think, though, his back issues, his age, all that stuff creeping up on him, the Packers were wise to move on. The way that they did it, and you just saw with some of the comments that have been trickling out on Twitter from his teammates as they finally met with the media. You heard Mike McCarthy talk about Josh Sitton in the media. It is obvious that this is reverbing through that Packers locker room, and that's the biggest issue that I have with this whole thing is the timing. This reminds me so much of the Lawyer Malloy release from the Patriots just before the 2003 season started, and they went out and got shellacked by the Bills, who Malloy happened to end up with after he got released. Now, that was a terrible start for the Patriots, but guess what? They won the championship that year. So, of course, Green Bay's going 16-0. They're going to win the championship this year. And let me just remove my tongue from my cheek for a second while I say that. But, it's that type of a hangover that we're worried about now. Are these guys going to be able to rally and play? I mean, it's not just losing a teammate. It's not just losing a cog in the offensive line. I mean, obviously this line they play as a unit. So as much as you rely on another person in football, the offensive line is definitely one of those groups. So, but these guys were friends. You saw T.J. Lang post a picture of himself wearing Sitton's jersey in the locker room and said, "I'll miss my best friend." David Bakhtiari, "We're going to miss Josh Sitton. We don't really agree with the timing of it, but we have to deal with it." Brian Bulaga, he's a great friend, a great guy. These guys were close. And that's where things get tough, is that these guys they're football players, they're barbarians on the field, but they're also human beings. So there's a human element to this whole situation. I'll wrap up with, and lastly, for now, because I've got so much more to say about it. We could do a whole show on this, but now Lane Taylor steps in. He was named the starter for at least week 1. And Lane Taylor is filling some very big shoes, and I think he knows it. And there's varying opinions on Twitter about whether Lane Taylor is going to be serviceable enough to keep the Packers afloat. He is no Josh Sitton. So let's get out of our heads at all that Lane Taylor's ceiling can be Josh Sitton level. That's not possible. my only hope is at this point, after watching Taylor last year and during the preseason, he didn't look great, is that he just doesn't get Aaron Rodgers killed. That's my biggest concern, is that if all of a sudden after week one Aaron Rodgers is sacked 5 times, not only are you going to start to see questions about the ability to protect the Packers, how it's going to affect the offense and their ability to score points and win games, but I have a feeling that's going to start raising more and more questions in the locker room. I mean, you saw last year what happened when this offense started sputtering and people started kind of mumbling a little bit. Josh Sitton was one of them who didn't agree with some of the strategies, the offense, the play calling, some of those things. I have a feeling those are the types of things that you're going to see. So, Ted Thompson has his methodology. He doesn't like to keep older players. He definitely wanted to move on, and he made it clear to Sitton they were going to work on some of the younger guys' contracts first who are coming up, that being David Bakhtiari, J.C. Treader, T.J. Lang. Wouldn't put him necessarily in the young guy category. He's 1 year younger than Josh Sitton, but those 3 guys, you've also got Micah Hyde, and then in a couple of years coming too, you got guys like Clinton Dix, whose contracts are coming up. So you got to think about stuff like that, but Thompson did this he did this back in 2005. He didn't bring back Mike Wall and Marco Rivera. Now he cut them at the beginning of the off season, so they were gone. He didn't do this a week before the season ended, but he ended up being right in that case. And I think with regards to letting veterans go, Thompson's generally been right about that. So I have to hope that's how it's going to turn out in this particular instance. But Jacob, I think the biggest key, and you probably would agree, at least to one extent or to the point of the time. It's the timing and how it's going to affect the emotional state of this team kind of in moving forward.
A lot of stuff there. First thing I want to address is Wall Rivera, because everyone brings that up as like, oh, that was an unmitigated disaster. And granted, the Packers had some terrible guard play after Wall and Rivera were released. However, Wall and Rivera both fell apart immediately thereafter. So while it didn't work out, that's still a correct decision that Thompson made. Now, what I want to get at here is, one, the timing thing, you nailed it on the head, because it's the week before the first game of the regular season, and you could see the emotional stuff coming. I mean, T.J. Lang looked like, after watching his press conference, or not his press conference, but his media availability, it was like the equivalent of somebody that had just seen their puppy get shot in front of them. I mean, it's devastating for him. That's his best friend, and he said that more than once. And, we always say the guys in the locker room don't have to like each other to play well together, but it does help if they do to some degree. And those 2 guys were great players, and they happened to really get along really well. And, from a fan standpoint, they were funny as hell. I mean, some of the stuff that they would do on Twitter to mess with each other and stuff like that, that's something I'm going to miss about Josh Sitton playing on the team. But my biggest issue with it is this. Josh Sitton was getting days off in camp, days off to rest his back, stuff like that. But game time came, and the starting offensive line played in 3 out of the 4 preseason games. Josh Sitton took every single rep with the first offensive line. One of the biggest things as a former offensive lineman, I can attest to this, any coach will tell you the same thing. You want continuity as much as possible. The best season the Packers had on their offensive line in recent memory was 2014. And that was the year where Brian Bulaga was the only player to miss a game. They were able to gel, get into the rhythm of things. The Packers were working their way toward that in the preseason. They've talked about wanting to be physical, wanting to run the ball, and then they just took their best run blocker and sent him away. And there really isn't a backup plan. Now, it'd be different if I knew Josh Sitton Jr. was behind Josh Sitton, and they were just like, okay, we're going to go with the young guy. But they're going with Lane Taylor. And I don't hate Lane Taylor like a lot of people do. However, his ceiling to me at this stage of his career is just a guy, average player. Josh Sitton is not just a guy. Josh Sitton is an all-pro. You don't have a backup plan. I mean, literally, after his release, I'm sitting there thinking, who's the guy going to be? The easiest thing is plug and go with Lane Taylor or Don Barclay. Somebody, I think it was Ryan Wood or Jason Wilde, one of those 2 suggested moving Brian Bulaga to left guard and plugging Jason Spriggs in at right tackle. That's playing musical chairs. They obviously decided not to do that. Ultimately, I think that's the right decision on that. The other thing about this whole thing on the offensive line is Mike McCarthy said this is maybe their best group as far as depth went. Well, I assumed when he said that, that meant that his 5 starters were there, and his 5 starters included Josh Sitton. Now, if, knock on wood, Lane Taylor gets hurt, you're looking at Don Barclay or Kyle Murphy or someone that really isn't either, in Don Barclay's case, not good, or in Kyle Murphy's case, not tested. You're looking at something a little different. Now, if Lane Taylor's your backup and he has to play a game or two here or there, he did okay last year. He was serviceable against the Lions. He was serviceable against the Vikings when he played. But I don't know if that makes a 16-game starter. And I know that doesn't make him as good as Josh Sitton. Not only that, you got to look at the whole picture now, too. I mean, the Packers had the best guard tandem in the NFC North. Now, the best guard tandem in the NFC North belongs to their rival Chicago Bears. Josh Sitton, Kyle Long. Now, at the end of the day, I'm more upset that Josh Sitton isn't a Packer than I am that he is a Chicago Bear. Because, no offense to the Chicago Bears, we'll get to them here when we do our regular season stuff, predictions and such. But I would rather Josh Sitton be a Chicago Bear than someone that I actually deemed a considerable threat to the Packers Super Bowl chances. And I don't deem the Chicago Bears a threat to that. I don't see it. Even with the addition of Sitton, I'm not buying into the Chicago Bear hype, if there is any to begin with. But now you're looking at week 1, and they're going to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if I'm Gus Bradley, I am putting Malik Jackson over Lane Taylor, and I am scheming the hell out of trying to confuse that kid because that's not Josh Sitton. And I feel a lot better about having Josh Sitton having to block some of those guys up front. A lot of stuff there. It's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, the other thing is I didn't go from thinking this Packers team was a Super Bowl contender to a third-place team because I've in the past watched Jaron College be the starting left guard and win a Super Bowl with the team. And before Don Barclay, Darren College was my least favorite Packers offensive lineman. Never thought he was good. And I also watched them go 15-1 with Marshall Newhouse being the left tackle for the majority of the season. And Marshall Newhouse, again, other than Don Barclay, is the worst left tackle I've seen play for the Packers in my lifetime. Now, granted, that's not very long, but it's still long enough to where I've seen a lot of different guys play that position, and Newhouse was the worst one, and they went 15-1. So, at the end of the season, if we're sitting here talking about another Packers playoff loss, I strongly doubt one of the first 2 or 3 things we're going to bring up is, if Josh Sitton was here, the Packers would have been just fine because the only way that that'll really come up is if somebody happens to blitz off the left guard, Taylor misses his assignment, and knock on wood, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt on that play. The reality is the Packers aren't going to be a Super Bowl team or not because of their left guard. So, with that in mind, Jason, do you have any more thoughts on this? I mean, what do you think about him signing in Chicago? Does that bother you? Does any of that stuff get in your head? What do you think about how, the rest of the situation went down? Just kind of closing thoughts here on the Packers releasing one of their better players and not really, my biggest issue, as I said, is not really having a solid backup plan for it.
Yeah, so he is the NFL. Man, I am the king of starting sentences that I don't finish. I just want our listeners to know. I listen to these back, and I know I do it a lot. I'm working on it. The NFL is not as fair to their players as, and I guess all professional sports are skewed towards the teams because, they've got owners, revenue, money talks, money drives. The NFL contract is not fair to the players. Let's be honest. Okay, they're not guaranteed. You see these contracts reported on ESPN, 3 years, $30 million. Well, that's if they max out. That doesn't mean that's what the player is going to get paid by the time his tenure in that city or with that team is over with. So it's all about the guaranteed money. It's usually a very small percentage of the contract unless you're an elite quarterback. And last time I checked, Josh Sitton is not that. So he's got to feed his family. He's been playing NFL football now for 8 years, going into his 9th season right now. He's got a lifestyle to uphold. Whether you agree with it or not, he's got to take care of himself. So the Bears came in with an offer. Like I said, they're paying him, I think, $7.5 million a year. The Packers were going to pay him $6.5. So he's getting more than he would have in Chicago, or than he would have in Green Bay, I should say. And I'm seeing all these theories thrown out there about how, Sitton had multiple offers. There was 31 other teams that gave him a contract, and he chose the Bears because he wants to stick it to the Packers. Folks, this is not Brett Favre, the Redux. This is not even Greg Jennings. This is not even insert player who was legitimately released and left thanking this is not any of that. There is no vendetta. And Sitton went on Twitter and said himself, this was not about revenge. Now, obviously he's not going to come out and say, yes, I want to stick it to the Packers, knowing how badly that's turned out for some of his former I guess he never played with Favre, but after he watched the Favre thing go down at Greg Jennings, I don't think Sitton's going to take that path. And honestly, I don't think he's that kind of a guy. So I'm okay with him being with the Bears. Jacob, I agree with you. I don't think Chicago takes a huge step forward. They have probably the best guard tandem in the NFL now. They just locked up Kyle Long term, which was a very smart move on their part. If anything, the Bears are starting to do smart things. So they're trending upward with regards to some of their personnel moves. So that's maybe a little something more to keep an eye on than this one action. But like you said, Jacob, there's never been a time where a team has lost their way because of a left guard or found their way because of a left guard. So, with regard to this Sitton's a traitor, this is it may be Josh Sitton's fault because of what really actually happened that we don't know behind the scenes. He may have been the catalyst to this happening because of his attitude or some things that he said. So, sure, it may be Sitton's fault, but the Packers released him. They decided to let him go. He's got to go find another job. So he landed in Chicago. That could have everything to do with his family, where they want to live, where he wants to be, all sorts of other things. Having a family myself, I get it. There's a lot of things you take into consideration. So I'm fine with it. He was a stand-up guy while he was in Green Bay. Regardless of what comes out about this situation, I wish him the best. He was an outstanding lineman for this team. He was a big part of the Super Bowl run. That's that. Josh Sitton is a Chicago Bear now, and it's time to move on. Lane Taylor, obviously, like we said, not going to be Josh Sitton. And I think I'll wait till we get to the schedule to talk about the first game against Jacksonville and how teams might attack trying to get after Aaron Rodgers now, and some of those teams on the schedule that have a better pass rush. Because, like you said, Jacob, that's definitely a concern. They're going to game plan for it. The Packers have to be ready for it. But as far as the whole Sitton thing, say your piece, and then I think we can pretty much move on.
Yeah, I think, like I said, the biggest thing that'll bug me is the timing, but ultimately he's a Chicago Bear, and I really just can't picture Lane Taylor being the difference in the Packers being a Super Bowl team and being a team that is run-of-the-mill, finishes third, and drafts in the top 15 next season. So that's our piece on Josh Sitton. Let us know at Packer Pulse. Tweet us. What do you think about the Packers releasing Josh Sitton? What's the biggest problem? Has your opinion changed on how the Packers are going to do this season? Things of that nature. And with that in mind now, just a couple quick notes on the final roster. The Packers did keep 7 wide receivers. Trevor Davis, it remains to be seen if he'll end up being on injured reserve. Mike McCarthy said today he expects 5 receivers to play Sunday in Jacksonville, which means Janice and Trevor Davis are likely to sit with their injuries. And then they kept 12 defensive backs, only 3 inside linebackers. I think that means that they're looking at the hybrid type thing with Morgan Burnett, maybe Marwin Evans. A lot of undrafted guys made the roster as well. Geronimo Allison was signed to the practice squad. So I think really another testament to how every year we kind of overvalue some of their own guys, where it's like, oh, my God, will this guy even make it to the practice squad? And more often than not, they do. The other thing was Jarrell Presley was awarded as a waiver claim to the Packers from the Minnesota Vikings. He might be a kickoff returner. He's a third-down running back. I tell you what, some of the clips and stuff I've seen, he looks fast. He looks quick. Looks nice in the open field. That could be an intriguing little player, just kind of a small move that maybe could pay some big dividends later in the season for the offense. But it looks like he'll at least contribute on special teams, which is a good thing. Jason, any thoughts on the final roster, I guess, before we move into the regular season?
Just a few, I guess. The interesting thing was the makeup of it. Now, one thing that I noticed, especially just kind of following on Twitter and, some of the guys that have breaking down the stats and stuff like that on the league, the undrafted free agent count on each NFL team has increased over the years. So the Packers definitely still use it more than average as far as the rest of the teams in the league are concerned, but this is a trend that is continuing to increase with each team. So it's getting less and less noteworthy that there's undrafted free agents. I think it's more of where they came from. I think that you've got a lot of defensive backs now, and you're going to start to see some new faces back there, phasing in to the scheme. Kentrell Bryce, for example. Marlon Evans was a nice keep. Hawkins was kept. So it's exciting because these guys showed well in camp, and they're, the Packers have had success and actually gotten contributions from guys like this. So I believe, even if it's not right away, we're going to see these guys step up and shine. I'm really excited to see, assuming that he stays on and there isn't something the Packers have in mind this week before the opener at Jacksonville, but I'm really excited to see Jarrell Presley in action and see what kind of contributions he can bring to special teams. I assume he's going to get some chances to return the football, and that seems to be what intrigued the Packers about him. So I'm okay with the roster. I'm excited about it. You're not going to ever have a perfect roster. You're going to probably have some depth issues. You only have so many draft picks. You only have so much money to sign free agents and things like that. But like I said, Jacob, we talked about it. We've been talking about it since we were getting ready for this show. I mean, I like the way this roster is made up, and I think if everybody can contribute and play serviceably or play as well as they can for those that are above average, I think there's no reason to think that this team can't accomplish what we thought they could even way back when they were on the plane back from Arizona.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more. I think you're seeing that something Ross Uglum pointed out. Ted Thompson expects to be ahead and ahead often, and then that's why he's got as many defensive backs. And as with all these defensive backs, it just speaks to the prowess of Joe Witt, and I don't want to talk about him too much, just in case another team is listening and they could steal him away as a defensive coordinator or a head coach. But this guy is one of the best coaches in the business. It doesn't matter if it's a first or second round pick or an undrafted guy. You've seen him get guys from all over the draft or not draft ready to play. Last year, we were talking about Demarius Randall and Quentin Rollins. Both players contributed. Sam Shields, former undrafted free agent. Tramon Williams, undrafted free agent. Devon House, fourth-round pick. Casey Hayward, second-round pick. I mean, it's all over the map as guys he's gotten ready to play. And the guy I'm most excited for is Josh Hawkins. I talked about him in the last show. I think that he could be a contributor maybe as soon as this season, later in the year. But with that, it is time now. What I've been waiting for since last season ended, it's one of my favorite things. Picking the regular season, something I do. I did it last night. And that is I go through the schedule, and I pick all 16 games for every team, winners, losers, and the like. And I build my Super Bowl championship. From that, we pick awards. Jason, we're going to do it all, but we're going to start with the Green Bay Packers, of course, because that's what this show is about. And let's be honest, is there really another team you guys want us to talk about? You're listening because you want to hear us talk Green Bay Packers. So it all starts Sunday, September the 11th, against the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road. Blake Bortles, Allen Robinson, Alan Hearns, old friend Devon House, Jalen Ramsey, your guy Miles Jack. A lot of expectations coming from the Jaguars this year. And, Jason, this will be the only one I ask because it's this week. We'll do it every week. These are subject to change, of course, as we go game by game. You pick these games not knowing major injuries, not knowing how the team is playing, stuff like that. So you're just picking wins and losses. But this week, a little breakdown, and your winner, obviously, as well. Jordy Nelson is back for the Packers. In my opinion, Eddie Lacy is back to being Eddie Lacy instead of Fat Eddie Lacy, and that's a big deal to me as well. The defense, it might struggle a little bit. This is a good offense. The Packers' defense is known over the last couple of years to kind of start a little slower, and that's just a product of a lot of different things, really. Last year it was growing pains. This year it might be some scheme adjustments, stuff like that. This year they're facing a really good offense. Allen Robinson's as good as it gets at the receiver position. Blake Bortles has gotten better every year. But nonetheless, Jordy Nelson is back. The Jaguars' corners, Devon House and rookie Jalen Ramsey, while I do like both of those players, they are susceptible to double moves, and that just so happens to be Jordy Nelson's specialty. I think he has a big game in his first game back. I like the Green Bay Packers to win this game 27-24 in a close game for the first game of the season. Aaron Rodgers, a big day. Jordy Nelson, a big day. And Eddie Lacy closes it out. Running the ball, I like the Packers to start 1-0 in Jacksonville. And from here or there, Jason, we will go just win or loss. But I do want to know, Packers or Jags?
Okay, so week one is always kind of squirrely in the NFL, has been for a long time. So I had to kind of think about this one for a bit because it doesn't matter who the opponent is. We see upsets in the first week of the season, and everything kind of comes back, and regression to the mean takes over after that. So the weather could be an issue. You know, there is actually still residual from this storm coming through there. So I don't know if they're going to be looking at more wet conditions, more humid conditions, but that's definitely a consideration if you think about it, what just went through Florida there. So there's something to keep in mind as well, because that's not weather that the Packers typically play in. And it is the Jaguars who kind of have higher expectations placed on them this season because of the draft, and Blake Bortles, again, like you said, Jacob, is coming into his own. He's a veteran quarterback now. I think this team realizes they can accomplish more. Gus Bradley's been there for a while. So all these things, it's you know, if the Jaguars are going to take a step under his leadership, I think this is the year they're going to do it. And what a better way to make a statement to the rest of the league than a huge home win against the Green Bay Packers in week one. So with that said, still can't pick the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Packers. I know I kind of set it up there, but I'm actually going to go 28-27 Packers. I do think this one is going to come down to the wire. It's got that type of vibe written all over it, not because, like I said, I don't think the Jaguars are of the same caliber. First week, Nelson hasn't played. A lot of these starters still have rust on them, so I don't expect to see the cleanest of games from Green Bay, but I do think that they'll find a way to score just even one more point than their opponent and escape Jacksonville with a big opening day win and a little bit of momentum coming into the second week of the season. Now, Jacob, you mentioned earlier about the pass rush. I don't know a lot about Jacksonville because they're in the AFC and I don't see them as often, and I'm not a huge film study person anyway. But this is going to be the first look at what the vulnerability of that Packers offensive line is. And like you said, line up Malik, I think you said Jackson over Lane Taylor. I mean, yeah, they're going to definitely test Taylor. You go after the weak point. It's like a quarterback going after the weak corner. You know, it's just what you do. Football's all about scheming. It's all about matchups. And Lane Taylor is a good matchup for most any defensive lineman right now, which is a problem for the Packers and one that they're going to have to account for. So whether they chip and help with a running back or they stick a tight end in the backfield again, they're going to have to make sure that Aaron Rodgers has time to throw and he can stay on his feet. Jordy Nelson is back. That's exciting, but I don't know how much we're going to get out of him in the first week of the season. Is he going to be on a pitch count? Do the Packers feel like Jacksonville is a little bit easier for them to handle? And do they need to push Jordy to be out there in week one, maybe kind of hold him a little bit for week two if you're going to give him a choice between the two games and playing more snaps? But Packers 28, Jags 27. Packers start out 1-0.
So we both got the Pack starting 1-0, leading into the showdown in Minnesota. The Minnesota Vikings are opening a new stadium. U.S. Bank Stadium is open for business. It's supposed to be loud as hell in there. The crowd will be insane. I'm sure of it. And this was a game, if I had broken down the schedule before last week, I would have pegged it as a Vikings win, just because of all the emotion and stuff that plays into it. But the Minnesota Vikings now have either Sam Bradford or Sean Hill taking snaps due to the horrific injury to Teddy Bridgewater's leg. The Packers did some good things against the Vikings defense last year when they came to Minnesota. Their offense is better this year. I think that the Packers will be able to score enough points. The big thing in this game will be, can they stop the run? Because the Vikings are going to want to run the ball, especially with the inexperience, whether in the offense or on the field, depending on if it's Bradford or Hill playing quarterback. They're going to want to run the ball. Packers need to stop Adrian Peterson. I think they can do that just enough, and I think they'll be able to score enough points. Again, I like the Packers to start 2-0 over the Minnesota Vikings, a big win in their new stadium. Jason, what you got?
This was a loss before Teddy Bridgewater got hurt, and whether it's Sean Hill or Sam Bradford, I have a feeling that Sam Bradford might get the start in this game, but it's not going to make a difference. I don't think that, he's good enough to take over this Vikings team and lead them to victory, even if you knew the playbook back and front. And if it's Sean Hill, even less of a concern. So I think the Vikings are still reeling a little bit. They'll probably pick up a Week 1 win in their game against Tennessee. I don't know if they're going to come in. They're going to be jacked up for sure. That defense is going to be coming after Aaron Rodgers. They're going to be licking their chops with the whole Lane Taylor situation. So really hope Taylor shows well in Week 1 so that the Vikings maybe have to think twice about how much they're really going to be able to get through that middle lane there. But I'm flipping the script now with the situation being a little bit different. I've got the Packers winning this one. This is a huge road win, so this is 2-0 and 2 road victories to start the season. It doesn't get any better than that when you consider what it could have been, and then that moves them into their home opener, and we all know how home openers go in Green Bay. It's just banging on the drum all day.
That it is, and their home opener will be against the Detroit Lions this year. The Lions actually won at Lambeau Field last year for the first time in my cognizant lifetime. I was there. I was very upset. It was not a good day, but as you mentioned, it's the home opener. They will be banging on that drum all day long. I think the Packers absolutely light up the Detroit Lions. 3-0 to start the season. Big game on the offense. I think they can force Matthew Stafford into some mistakes, because one thing about last year that you look at that was weird is the Packers lost all 3 of their home games against their division rivals. And all 3 of those teams played like crap in those games. They scored, I think it was 17, 17, and 20 points in those 3 games. I'd have to check that to make 100% sure on that. But it's not as if the Packers just got beaten off the field by a better team. They did not play well. And I think this is a case where the emphasis is on winning at home, winning your division games at home. You get what you emphasize. I think the Packers roll over the Detroit Lions 3-0 to start the season. I can't imagine you think any differently, Jason.
I don't. I'm in total agreement with you, except with the exception of one thing. The Packers did not lose, or the Detroit Lions did not win against the Packers at Lambeau Field last year. The Packers lost to the Lions. They gave that game away. They had chances to win. They didn't do it. To me, there's a difference, but in the win and loss column, it goes down as a loss. So if anything good came out of it, we can stop talking about this 2.5-decade-long streak against the Lions and start a new one. 3-0 it is heading into the bye week.
That's right, heading into the bye week, and then when they come back, it will be a Sunday night showdown against the New York Giants. The Giants are a team that really have opinions on both sides of the spectrum. You really don't know how to feel about them. I'll let you know in a few minutes how I feel about them this year. But at the end of the day, the Giants spent a lot of money on pass rushers this year. I'm not 100% ready to just buy into the Olivier Vernon hype train. He had a good half season and parlayed it into a huge contract. Great for him. Odell Beckham Jr., I'm sure he'll have a big game. Sterling Shepard presents some matchup problems. But those corners in New York are not good. I know they signed Janoris Jenkins to a ton of money. I thought that was a guy who was a product of being the best corner in a weak class. I think the Packers can do some things against them. I think they'll be able to run the ball against the Giants on Sunday night. Sunday, October 9th, under the lights at Lambeau Field. I'm not picking a team to beat them in a game like that. I got Green Bay 4-0 over the New York Giants. Jason, anything to add?
You went dark there for a second, Jacob. I wasn't sure if there was an intro coming. So I was actually, and part of what I was doing during the silence there was I was actually thinking the last time Aaron Rodgers faced the Giants, correct me if I'm wrong, was in 2012, right? And they got killed on Sunday night.
Correct. And, yeah, it was 38-10. Jordy Nelson had a big play that started at 7-7, and then they just got the doors blown off of them. But that was in the Meadowlands.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the Meadowlands. The following season, Rodgers was out. It was Scott Tolzien who got shellacked by the Giants. I'll never forget Jason Pierre-Paul streaking down the field with the football for a pick six, and that was also an ugly loss. That was the last time the Packers faced the Giants. The Giants are due for a nice little knuckle sandwich courtesy of the Green Bay Packers, and where better than Lambeau Field, where the Giants have ruined many a season, and by many I'm meaning at least two in recent memory. And enough is enough. Let's give Eli Manning a nice little parting gift here if this happens to be one of his last times at Lambeau Field. I think the Packers have no trouble dispatching the Giants, and 4-0 to start the season. And as Mike McCarthy likes to break the season down in quarters, it's a perfect first quarter. 4-0 for the Pack heading into Week 5.
So we both got the Packers at 4-0, and I just want to point out, since you pointed out the two losses, the last regular season game that the Giants played at Lambeau Field, the Packers beat them 45-17, and it was one of the best games I've ever been at. So I'm going to choose to remember those memories as opposed to 2007, 2011, the beatdown they took in the Meadowlands, all that stuff. But the next game will be against the Dallas Cowboys. It's a 3:30 kick. They are honoring Brett Favre at halftime, and the Cowboys are another interesting team. NFC East, Tony Romo probably not going to play. So it'll be Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and, of course, anytime Des Bryant comes to Lambeau Field now, the Des caught it hashtag is going to come into play. Last year, the Packers played the Cowboys with, I believe, Matt Castle was their starting quarterback, and it was a brutal game. 21-7 was the final score. The Packers won. This is another game. I know a lot of people want to jump on the Dak Prescott hype train, and the Cowboys in general, too. It's almost like everyone was just like, okay, last year they didn't have DeMarco Murray, so they tanked. They add in a running back that probably is going to be pretty good behind that offensive line. So the Cowboys are going to be good again. I just don't see it. I don't know defensively what they're going to be able to do. I don't know what they're going to be good at on defense. And last year's the exception to the rule. If you're not good on defense, Aaron Rodgers torches you with Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams and Jared Cook. This is another game I think it sets up for the Packers to score a lot of points. Really the big thing will be whether it's Prescott or Romo, stop Ezekiel Elliott, or at least limit him as much as possible, because it sounds like the Cowboys' game plan is pretty much going to be possess the ball for 35 minutes, keep their defense off the field so they can be fresh. They'll make enough plays to win a game. I just think that's a bad strategy when there's very little margin for error when you have a strategy like that. So I just don't – this seems like an old Minnesota Vikings team where they're going to run the ball with Peterson, they're going to play defense, and, and this is the case where the Cowboys can't even really play defense. So Packers here again, 5-0 to start the season, 2-0 against the NFC East. Big win over the Cowboys if they do, in fact, become an NFC contender, and that will lead them into a Thursday night showdown against Chicago. But before we get there, Jason, Packers or Cowboys?
Throwback weekend. The Packers never lose on throwback weekend. Dez drops another one. Packers win.
Well, there you have that. That was pretty simple. You're right. The Packers have not lost on throwback weekend. I know last year they beat the San Diego Chargers. The year before that, they blew out the Carolina Panthers. And those are just the two off the top of my head. So we both like Green Bay over Dallas. They'll have a quick turnaround Thursday night, the fourth and final of 4 consecutive home games against Chicago. I know last year the Bears came into Chicago and won on Thanksgiving night when the Packers honored Brett Favre, retired his number, all that good stuff. Not a good memory for me. I was in the stadium. It was just a really, really bad game. All the way around. The Packers, again, that's another one of those, Jason, you may want the addendum. The Packers lost to the Bears. The Bears did not beat the Packers. And I mentioned before, it'll be Josh Sitton's return to Lambeau Field. I guess that's a storyline now. I just don't buy into the Bears this year. And my general rule of thumb when I do these 16-game predictions is if you see a home team on Thursday Night Football, unless the road team is decidedly better, in your opinion, than the home team, pick the home team. Well, the Packers are a better team than the Bears. They'll be wearing those ugly color rush uniforms, and you'll be hearing Todd Rundgren all night long because I really do think this game has a potential to get ugly and fast. Lambeau Field is Jay Cutler's personal version of hell, and this could be the case, again, for Jay Cutler. Packers bang on that drum all night long, and that drum happens to be the Chicago Bears. I like the Packers 6-0 over the Chicago Bears.
Well, Jacob, I am not following your formula for Thursday Night Football because I just don't see the Packers clean sweeping the division. So that means I have to find a divisional game that they're not going to win. Well, I don't mean to give away the farm here, but it's not going to be the Lions. The Vikings are still a decent candidate if you think about the fact that their second matchup against Minnesota is Week 16, when they've had time to gel and they should have an idea of who their quarterback is and worked out definitely by then all the kinks. So that's a candidate there. But for some reason, the Packers just have these weird games against the Bears at Lambeau Field every once in a while. I know that they got it out of their system last year at the worst possible time when they were retiring Brett Favre's number. But I just, and this has nothing to do with Josh Sitton, I just see this as an ugly game where something's off. There's going to be a game where the Packers just don't get it together, and I think this is where they experience their first letdown of the season. It just happens to be Josh Sitton's return to Lambeau Field. So I'm giving the Packers their first loss of the season here, home against Chicago, which puts them at 5-1, and heading back on the road to Atlanta the following week.
Interesting, because I also have a theory about the Packers that I'll get to here in a minute. I'm sure media members that love narratives will love that Josh Sitton, if your scenario plays out, that Josh Sitton's team will win in his return to Lambeau Field. And there will be a bunch of stories made about that. I am sure that they will all be level-headed if that were the case. So Jason does not like the Pack over the Bears, and I do. The next week is at Atlanta. This will be October 30th, my mother's 50th birthday. Mother, if you're listening, you don't look a day over 29, though, so don't worry about that number. Nonetheless, my other theory about the Packers is, as long as I can remember, and last year's kind of the exception to the rule because they weren't as good. So when they're a good team, you look back every year and you go, how the hell did they lose that game? Well, one year, like 2014, that was Buffalo. In years past, it's been other teams. This is a game, it's on the road. Atlanta's good at home. Julio Jones has a great history. The last time he played the Packers, he torched them for about 275,000 yards, and I think those are exact numbers. This just seems like a game Green Bay could drop. Coming off 4 consecutive home games, they're on the road. They haven't played on the road since September 18th at this point. I like Atlanta in this game, and that's not even to say I think Atlanta's a better team. It just seems like it would be the right time, and this would be the random, how did Green Bay lose that game kind of game at the end of the year. So I like Atlanta to beat Green Bay in Atlanta. Jason, what about you?
So there's just certain venues. You heard me say this before. There's really no reason from one year to the next because of the changes the teams make to think that just because they've struggled at venue X for years means they're going to continue to struggle this year when it's a different team, different vibe, different, on both sides of the ball. Atlanta's just one of those tough places to go and play, and I know that Aaron Rodgers put together arguably one of the best performances of his entire career there in a huge playoff victory, which was one of the last times that they were there. I know they went back and visited the year following in 2011. I think that was the last time they were there. They also won that game, so it can be done, and I think that the Packers have the type of roster that can take advantage of what Atlanta has to offer. I just think that, though, this is one of those road games where, you're not going to go undefeated on the road. It's a tough venue to play in. The Falcons are kind of on the come-up this year a little bit, so I've got them dropping this one as well just because of the fact that it's a road game. Maybe they're still a little hungover from the week prior, so not ideal losing 2 in a row the way that I have it shaken out. But the good news is moving forward that hopefully health isn't an issue, but they're coming back home the following week, so a little home cooking to hopefully stop the bleeding a little bit.
A little home cooking against the Indianapolis Colts. Rivalry in my house, my team against my mom's team. We will be in attendance for that game. It'll be the first game my mom's ever been to see her favorite team play, but sorry, Mom. Andrew Luck throws 2 or 3 picks. Aaron Rodgers lights up that terrible secondary. Packers win big to bounce back from their loss. Again, big win at Lambeau Field against what really is, I think, one of the overhyped teams this year. And I'll get to that later, obviously. But I like the Packers to beat the Colts. I don't see a lot that Indianapolis can do to change my opinion on that. So I like Green Bay to get back on track by beating the Colts. Jason, what about you?
So I don't know what the final score is going to be. It could be a shootout. I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Luck is playing halfway decent at that point. You got Luck versus Rodgers. Packers owe these guys one for that crapper they put down in 2012 in Indianapolis, and Rodgers reminds Luck who the real king of the NFL is. Sorry to your very much younger-looking mom, Jacob, but I don't think this is going to be a big birthday surprise for her. I've got the Packers winning this one and bouncing back, getting back in the win column.
Packers back in the win column, and that will start 3 consecutive road games. Titans, Redskins, Eagles, all road games. First one is in Nashville against the Tennessee Titans, and if I'm not wrong, Jason, the last time the Packers were there was Rodgers' first year as a starting quarterback. They lost in overtime, one of many of those weird losses that year. It felt like the whole game the Packers were a better team, and they just lost at the end. This year, the Titans, I expect them to be a little better. Marcus Mariota in his second year, DeMarco Murray, Derrick Henry. But the thing is, I just don't see the weapons at receiver. The Packers' biggest strength is their secondary. I think they can force Mariota into some mistakes. Titans' defense has some decent players on it, but ultimately Green Bay is a better team. I like the Packers to get a win on the road in Nashville, avenging the loss from 8 years ago. Jason, Rodgers or Mariota?
Ridiculous question. I mean, I guess Mariota can win if you gave. If you simulated this game 20 times, I think Tennessee could win one on a fluke turnover if Rodgers gets knocked out in the first half as well. But, no, I mean, and you know, the interesting thing about that, in 2008, the Titans were undefeated at that point. The Packers had a chance to spoil their perfect record, and like you said, they were the better team that day, but that was the season of not finishing games, and so the Packers ended up losing in overtime on the road, which was kind of a bummer. But this is another one where, because of an unfamiliar road venue, it's almost kind of like the Buffalo effect, where it doesn't matter how good the opponent is, it's just the unfamiliar, venue, different time zone, those types of things. I guess it's not a huge change, swinging time zone, but was something that may play against the Packers. But it's still the Titans, and I don't think that they're anywhere near ready to take on a Packers team that hopefully is truly in mid-season form, because by that time it will be mid-season. So I've got the Packers winning that one on the road, second one in a row, coming off of those 2 losses in a row.
Second one in a row. They will go to Washington then and play a Sunday night game against the Washington Redskins. Kirk Cousins, you like that. A rematch of last year's wild card game where the Packers went in and, to my surprise, won the game. I picked Washington to win that game, and the Packers kind of blew them off the field after a slow start. This is what Mike McCarthy calls a hump game, whenever they get 3 in a row in a difficult stretch. And while I think the Packers are better than the Redskins, it's another one of those. It's a road game. It's tough. It's in the middle of 3 in a row. It's a difficult thing to do. Again, I don't think Washington's a better team, but it's just one of those. They catch Green Bay at the right time. I think Washington wins this game. I think they can do some things offensively. Jordan Reed had a big game last year in the playoffs. I think they can feed him early and often. Maybe Deshaun Jackson slips behind the Packers safeties for a big one late. I like Washington to win this in a close battle, but nonetheless, the Packers take their second loss in Washington. Jason, what do you got here?
It's real simple. Kirk Cousins is the quarterback. They're not beating the Packers. Packers return to Washington, same venue, same result. Packers win their 3rd in a row the way that I've got it here, and build up quite a bit of momentum here going into a Monday night matchup within the division as well. Going to be kind of interesting. I know the Packers would never decide to just stay out east with having 2, and I don't know if you consider Tennessee to be a 3rd straight East Coast road game, but I don't know, some of that travel and lag might possibly become a factor here in this next matchup. But again, I think this is the Monday nighter, right?
It is. It's a Monday nighter against Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz of North Dakota State, unless an injury happens, will be the starting quarterback. Another civil war in my house. Packers, Eagles. My dad is a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I can't remember the last time the Eagles beat the Packers. It may very well have been the 4th and 26 game in 2003. I could be wrong on that. No, I take that back. It was another Monday night game. The Packers 4-12 season, they got blown out by. It was either the 4-12 or the 8-8 season. I guess I can't remember, but they got blown out by the Eagles at the link that year. But the Packers are good. The Eagles are not. Carson Wentz, as good as I think he can be, this is a defense he's never seen before. This will be algebra as opposed to the elementary math he was doing at North Dakota State. I like Green Bay here, and maybe even big on Monday night on the big stage. John Gruden gushing about Aaron Rodgers. Spider 2, why banana, all night long. Green Bay over Philly. Jason, what do you got?
Man, Jacob, I really like this Aaron Rodgers kid out of Cal Berkeley. So the Packers, unfortunately, suffered their last loss to the Philadelphia Eagles in 2013. This was the first full game that the Packers did not have Aaron Rodgers. Seneca Wallace started, was quickly eliminated from that game, and thus began the beginning of the end of the Scott Tolzien era in Green Bay. But that was then, and this is now. So Carson Wentz is the quarterback for Philadelphia. Again, here's another one. Venue that Packers have historically struggled at, completely different Packers team, same old venue. Doug Peterson coaching against his former team. I just think it's the third road game in a row. Packers have had some good things happen to them so far the way that I've got it. I see this one as just a little bit of the Packers are a little worn down, even though they've got the better quarterback. Tough road game on a Monday night. The Eagles are jacked up, and I think they somehow find a way to win. So I've got the Packers dropping this one, and so this gives them, as far as I've got them, their third loss of the season.
So in the interest of time, I want to do the next two right in a row. It's two home games, one against Houston and one against the Seattle Seahawks. That'll be a showdown. I've got them beating Houston, and I've got them dropping against Seattle. Again, it's hard to go through the entire season undefeated at home. At this point, Seattle would be my third loss of the season that they've had, and that'll lead them to 3 straight division games to close out the season. But Seattle is just kind of a team that just matches up well with Green Bay. They're good in the secondary. They're good up front. They can stop the run. It's a good defense. Russell Wilson's a mobile quarterback. Just kind of a recipe for a team that can beat Green Bay in the cold weather at Lambeau Field. So I got them beating Houston and losing to Seattle. So split those 2 home games before they go to Chicago. Jason, what do you got for the next 2 home games, Houston and Seattle?
So I've got the Packers spoiling the return home of J.J. Watt. He was not with the team in 2008 when they were there last, when the Packers dropped a stinker to a Matt Ryan-led Falcons team, or actually, no, not Matt Ryan. I think that was Phil Schaub. Yeah, it was Matt Schaub back then, and I don't even know if he's still in the league anymore. So I've got the Packers beating the Texans at home, and then I'm supposed to be in the house for the following week against the Seattle Seahawks, and this is kind of like you said, the showdown for potentially the number 1 seed in the NFC. I just look at this whole situation. I think to myself, if everyone's healthy, Seattle's defense is usually really jacked up and playing at their peak by this time. Russell Wilson, the sun just always seems to rise and set on him. I know the Packers had their way with the Seahawks last year, but that was early in the season before they had Cam Chancellor back, and there were some other factors involved there as well. Somehow I see the Seahawks edging the Packers out here, claiming that 1 seed, and so then that would be their 4th loss of the season, moving into the home stretch and a little visit to Soldier Field.
That's right, Soldier Field at Chicago, home against the Vikings, and at Detroit to close the season. Again, in the interest of time, all 3 in a row here. I can't remember. I think the last time the Packers lost in Chicago was 2010, and that took 18 penalties for them to do that. I like them to beat the Bears. I think by this time of the year, the Bears will be a defeated team. Minnesota, it's at home on Christmas Eve. Again, if I'm not picking the Vikings to win at U.S. Bank Stadium, I'm not picking them to win at Lambeau Field. Detroit, I don't anticipate them being a good team. So, again, I've got Detroit as a defeated team by the end of the season. I got the Packers winning the last 3 games, finishing their record at 13-3, and the number 2 seed in the NFC due to the tiebreaker of losing the home game to Seattle. So, Jason, final 3, what do you got here?
Clean sweep. Packers win all 3. They're coming into Chicago, beating the Bears, which completely makes up for the stinker loss that they suffered at Lambeau Field to the Bears earlier in the season by my count. Always love to see Chicago Bears fans leave dejected. And even better, Jacob, as you know, because you live close to that locale, is the talk radio that ensues on Monday. Please record it and send me a bunch of snippets if you would. Like you said, can't pick the Packers over the Vikings. it in at Lambeau if we're not gonna pick them to lose in week 2, which we're not. So Packers beat the Vikes in their last home game of the season. Then at Detroit, always a tough game, regardless of how these two teams shake out. It's on the road at Detroit. But I think the Packers by this time have got their eyes set on trying to make some noise in the NFC, and they know they've got to win these games to protect that second seed and keep a bye week, which they do. So I've got them finishing with 3 victories, and they finished at 12-4. Jacob, I agree with you. I've got Seattle's first seed, and Packers are sitting in the number 2 spot.
So there you have that. We got the Packers. I got them 13-3. Jason's got them 12-4. We're going to go through some awards for the team real quick. I want to know who's your most valuable player, not named Aaron Rodgers, because obviously the starting quarterback is going to be the MVP. Who's your defensive player of the year, and who is your breakout player? That was a question from Alex Wagner. Alex, we'll get to your other questions here shortly as well. My MVP is David Bakhtiari, because with the release of Josh Sitton, the left side of that line has to be solidified. Bakhtiari, you saw the disaster last year when he wasn't able to play. Nothing against Jason Spriggs, but if I can choose the guy who's a 3-year vet, this would be a 4th-year vet at this point, over the rookie, I will. David Bakhtiari is my MVP for this team. Defensive player of the year, this is kind of a cop-out, I guess, but I'm picking Clay Matthews. I think his return to the edge, he's going to set the Packers' all-time sack record. He's 8.5 away as we speak. I think Matthews breaks that record. I think he gets into double digits this year with his return to the edge. And then breakout player, I got another outside linebacker by the name of Dayton Jones. Dayton's moved over to the edge after spending his career on the defensive line. He's looked good in that role. I think he's going to have a big year. He may not be in the sack number department, but you will be able to tell this guy is an impact player in that spot. So, Jason, who are your 3 guys? MVP, DPOY, breakout player.
All right, since we can't go Aaron Rodgers, then I'm going to go with the tight end Jared Cook. He looks really comfortable in the Packers offense already. I think by the time the season's over with, barring any health issues, Aaron Rodgers is going to find a way to get the ball to number 89 often, and he is going to do some great things with it. So Jared Cook's going to end up being the Packers MVP, another great outside free agent pickup for the Packers, although rare, pays huge dividends. My defensive player of the year is Clinton Dix. He just looks like a man possessed in a little bit of film that we saw in the preseason. This guy is looking to make a huge leap from year 2 to year 3. I think he's going to be one of the biggest reasons why the Packers secondary takes a jump from last year to this year and becomes one of the better units in the NFL and really defending that pass. Looks like he's primed to be a great pro, and wouldn't be surprised if he's a Pro Bowl alternate or possibly even a starter this year. So my defensive player of the year is Clinton Dix at the safety. And for breakout, hardly a rookie, but I'm going to go with Nick Perry, because Nick Perry is actually healthy and has stayed healthy through training camp. He has not yet suffered an injury. He has yet to play a full season in Green Bay, but I think if healthy, we see him making plays in bunches. If he stays available and he's healthy enough to get out there, I think Nick Perry, 16-game season put together, can do some really, really good things. You mentioned Dayton Jones. Those 2 guys together may end up forming quite the tandem, because when you consider that Julius Peppers is probably gone after this year, one of the 2 of those guys between Jones and Perry is going to have to really step up and fill some of that production, or exceed it, actually, because Peppers has been a little bit more on the pedestrian side. So like those 2 picks, and if that can be the case, then I have no complaints there.
All righty, so we have now regular season. We've gone through the Packers. Jason, I want your 6 playoff teams on each side. Mine are Seattle, the 1 seed, Green Bay, the 2. They get buys. My number 3 seed is the Carolina Panthers. My NFC East winner is the New York Giants. I got the Arizona Cardinals and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as my 2 wild card teams. And then get through the championship weekend. I've got my championship game in the NFC as Seattle against Green Bay in Seattle. On the AFC side of things, I've got New England as the 1 seed. I've got, excuse me here real quick, I've got the Cincinnati Bengals as the 2 seed. I've got Kansas City winning the AFC West. I've got the Houston Texans winning the AFC South. My wild card teams, I have the Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. And my AFC championship game is the Patriots and the Steelers in Foxborough. So, Jason, 6 teams on each side, and your championship games, we'll pick winners from there.
Okay, in the NFC, ours are pretty close. I've got Seattle 1, Green Bay 2. Carolina is your 3rd seed. I have Washington winning the East. They come in at the 4th seed. Arizona's your number 5 seed wild card, and I have the Atlanta Falcons bringing up the rear with the 6th spot. So then I've got Carolina taking out Atlanta. I've got Arizona taking out Washington. The Packers take care of Carolina. Seattle beats Arizona, and then that sets up the Seahawks and Green Bay in the NFC Championship game. On the AFC, I've got Pittsburgh with the first seed. Tom Brady's suspension too big for New England to overcome. They do grab the second seed, though, still get a bye week. Kansas City wins the West. Indianapolis wins the South. Cincinnati and Houston are your wild card teams. I've got KC over Houston, Indy over Cincinnati because the Bengals just always lose playoff games. And then I see Pittsburgh taking out the Colts and the Patriots taking out the Chiefs. So you've got Pittsburgh hosting New England in the AFC Championship game.
So championship games, we actually have the same ones. My results for that, I have the Seattle Seahawks beating the Green Bay Packers for the second time in 3 years in the NFC Championship game. That's just how I went with my gut, and I went with Seattle. So Seattle over Green Bay, they get to their third Super Bowl in 4 years. And I have the Patriots beating the Steelers in Foxborough, getting to another Super Bowl with Tom Brady at quarterback, a rematch of the instant classic Super Bowl 49. Jason, same or different?
So, yeah, I've got it slightly different. So I have Seattle, unfortunately, taking care of Green Bay, and I don't think it's going to be as close as the last game. I don't think anybody would mind not seeing another repeat of the way the last game ended, but it'll be in Seattle, so a little too tough for the Packers to overcome, so they drop it to the Seahawks. Seahawks advance to their third Super Bowl in the last 4 years, and then I've got the Steelers beating the Patriots at home to set up a rematch of a previous Super Bowl from – he'll be just shy of 11 years to the day that those two teams faced off in the Super Bowl, and Ben Roethlisberger was the quarterback for the Steelers then as well. So Pittsburgh, Seattle, Super Bowl rematch.
So he's got Pittsburgh, Seattle. I've got New England, Seattle, and I am going with the same result. The New England Patriots beat the Seattle Seahawks, Tom Brady's fifth Super Bowl ring with Bill Belichick. I've got Tom Brady as my Super Bowl MVP. Patriots over Seahawks in the Super Bowl. Jason, Seahawks or Steelers?
Steelers, and it's going to be legitimate this time. There won't be any fake touchdowns. So Big Ben, Super Bowl MVP, gets it done, finds a way to take out the Seahawks. Packers fans always rejoice when the Seahawks lose a game, and hopefully they'll pan in closely on Pete Carroll's face for my sake, because he used to coach at USC, and I do not like that school. So that is how I see the Super Bowl shaken out, and I guess we have yet to do our NFL season awards yet, huh?
We do, and so there for a recap real quick, both of us have the Packers losing in the NFC final against the Seattle Seahawks. We both have the Seahawks losing in the Super Bowl. Myself, I have them losing to the Patriots. Jason has them losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which brings us regular season awards, most valuable player, Defensive Player of the Year, and Rookie of the Year on each side. MVP. Last year I went with Andrew Luck, which was a bit of a risky call. Not really, but kind of. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Tom Brady, those kinds of people. Luck got injured and did not play well before he got injured. So this year, Jordy Nelson's back. Randall Cobb will be better. Jared Cook is there. Give me Aaron Rodgers, most valuable player of the league. I think Aaron Rodgers wins his third MVP award. Unfortunately, falls just short of a Super Bowl, but give me Aaron Rodgers as my MVP. My Defensive Player of the Year, I didn't want to pick J.J. Watt because every year I feel like people are like, oh, I picked, for example, J.J. Watt is quote-unquote obvious. And you get the people who, at the end of the year, they're like, oh, I called it. I called J.J. Watt winning Defensive Player of the Year. Well, you didn't really go out on a limb to call that. So I'm not sure that your football acumen is that high if you're willing to do that. Maybe I'm the stupid one for that, though. I don't know. But I went with Khalil Mack of the Oakland Raiders. I like him. I watched him in person a few weeks ago when Oakland came to Green Bay. I think he's going to have a big year in that defense, and the Raiders take a step forward. I have them just missing the playoffs, finishing 9-7. But I like Khalil Mack to have a big year and kind of cement himself as one of the best players on defense in all of football. Rookies of the Year, I think these are the easiest ones. Zeke Elliott on offense, Jalen Ramsey on defense. It's a skill position thing almost all the time. Zeke Elliott's going to run behind that offensive line. Jalen Ramsey is going to have a lot of opportunities to make some interceptions. I think he'll make a few splash plays and get himself a Defensive Rookie of the Year. So, Jason, what are your four big awards?
All right, so I've got Big Ben having himself quite a season. I have him grabbing the NFL MVP. I think a motivated Antonio Brown comes out and they just light up the scoreboard up and down the season. So I got Ben Roethlisberger winning the MVP. For the Defensive Player of the Year, we agree on Khalil Mack. I think J.J. Watt actually is going to start slowly this season. He's going to play right out of the gate, but he's dealing with some dings and some bruises. So I don't think you're going to see a typical season from J.J. Watt. And he can certainly feel free to wait to turn on the Jets until after the Houston Texans visit the Green Bay Packers. I know he's listening to the show. So, J.J. Watt, thank you very much. And congratulations, by the way, to your brother and the Wisconsin Badgers for their huge win over the LSU Tigers this past weekend. So, for the Rookies of the Year, I've got Offensive Rookie of the Year, Ezekiel Elliott, running back for the Dallas Cowboys. I think he's an easy pick. He's kind of a popular pick because of his showing in the preseason and his pro readiness, which seems to be pretty evident. And I think with the Cowboys' quarterback issues, they're going to run the ball quite a bit, so he'll have plenty of chances to showcase himself. And Defensive Rookie of the Year, I've got Jalen Ramsey as well from the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the first skilled defensive positions taken, and I think he is going to impress quite a bit, although, again, wouldn't mind if he doesn't want to turn on the lights or get it or have the light bulb turn on until after week 1. If he doesn't mind, that would be fantastic. And again, Jalen, I know you're listening to this show as well, so thanks so much for heeding our request.
So there you have that, and we have a first for Pulse of the Pack now. My new dog, we actually just got a new puppy. He's a 2-year-old Rottweiler, Samson Lambo, and it's fitting. Samson Lambo is making his first appearance on the show. He's sniffing around on the ground right now. I had to give him a shout-out. We have 2 new dogs now, Samson Lambo and Lacey Marie. Of course, Lacey Marie named after Eddie Lacy. So 2 new Packer dogs. But there you have our regular season awards. And to finish this off, we have one final question we got again from Alex Wagner. Alex, thank you for sending us questions. We really appreciate that. Send them to us anytime, guys, at Packer Pulse. Tweet us questions. The regular season has begun as of Sunday. So we want to know, what do you guys want to talk about? What do you guys think was the big key to the game? Stuff like that. Send it to us all season long. We'll get our first regular season ticket king of the game this Sunday when the Packers take on the Jaguars. So that'll be interesting. Ticket King, thank you for your sponsorship. Again, just a short walk from the stadium. And get your tickets, go in, cheer on the Pack. But it's right there, so it's not too hard to find. But the question we have is very hard-hitting and very football-oriented. Alex Wagner wants to know, what are the best pizza toppings possible? Obviously, football, with that comes food. Every week at my house, we have food, and my friends all come over, and we just sit and we watch the games for 9 hours at a time, and I love it. And with that sometimes comes pizza. So, Jason, they want to know, what do you put on your pizza? So mine are a little interesting. I got your obvious, I got pepperoni, a little extra cheese maybe. I do prefer pan style to thin crust. So if you want to know there's that. And then after that, I'm kind of interesting on those. I like bacon on my pizza. I like grilled chicken. And I like shrimp on my pizza as well. I'm a big shrimp fan. I love seafood. One of my favorite things to grill actually is fresh shrimp from the seafood market. So those are my pizza toppings. Really, when it comes down to it, I like meat. But one thing I absolutely will not put on my pizza is sausage. I don't know what it is. I've never been a fan. I'll eat like a sausage McMuffin from McDonald's if breakfast desperation comes into play. But those are my pizza toppings. But I won't eat sausage on pizza, and I don't really like sausage on anything else, to be honest with you. I don't even eat breakfast sausage, like sausage links or things of that nature either. So bacon, shrimp, pepperoni, grilled chicken, meat in general, just don't put sausage on my pizza. So, and then pan over thin if I do have that option as well. Jason, what is your pizza toppings?
I always look forward to listening back to our shows because I always catch a nugget or two that I've missed while we were recording live, and your diatribe on sausage and your lack of desire for it, Jacob, has me so excited to listen back to this show. And if there's one thing I already knew about you, is that you're definitely not a sausage guy. So, pizza toppings. So I'm going to go with pepperoni, obviously. It's my nickname, so I got to throw that on the pizza, plus the Italian roots. And because of the Italian roots, I am a sausage on the pizza guy, but not a sausage guy, if that makes sense. definitely agree with you on the whole meat thing. From there, it's pretty much grilled chicken, bacon, maybe a little Canadian bacon. I can even stomach some ham, even though I'm not a big ham fan. Not a fan of vegetables on pizza. If you want to get vegetables, order a salad. That's my take. I am a deep dish guy all the way. Chicago style is one of my favorites. I guess I should say deep dish in Chicago, because Chicago style means something completely else. But there you have it. Great question by Alex Wagner to break up some of the tension post-Josh Sitton drama this week. So good job, Alex. Appreciate the question.
And there you have it. I'm stunned. We actually have time to spare at the end of this show. I really thought that we were going to be up against the clock. We've only had that happen once, and I believe it was last year's regular season show. So that means we got better this year, and I can't complain with that. And while I have some extra time, then, Jason, I do have to say, since you said you like my little nuggets that go in between, something I tweeted earlier was you're always good for a one-liner, and my favorite moment of the show is going to be when I ask Rodgers or Mariota, and I could just see you rolling your eyes and saying, ridiculous question. You're good for a one-liner every single show, so that's my favorite part of listening back to every show. And, guys, with that, today's show is over. Be sure to check out PackersTalk.com for all your latest Packers news and podcasts. You can follow the show on Twitter @PackerPulse. Send us questions, comments, concerns. What do you think? Who is your ticket king of the game? We'll announce those on this show, too, once next week's game is over. Who made the biggest play of the game? Who maybe was an unsung hero? Stuff like that. You can send those to myself as well. I am @Jacob Westendorf. You can send them to Jason @Jason Perrone. Want to thank Ticket King for our sponsor. Tune in every week. Our Ticket King of the game. Thankful for their sponsors. As I said, just a short walk from the stadium. Get your tickets. Walk in. Cheer on the Pack. It's on Oneida Street. It's not too far from the stadium. Can't complain one bit with getting your tickets right down the street from where the game is at. That gets rid of all the potential for counterfeit tickets and print-off tickets being an issue, things of that nature. So go ahead and grab your tickets from Ticket King. Thank you for your sponsor, Ticket King, as well. Guys, preseason is over. Fake football is over. Analyzing the draft is over. Analyzing who's going to be on the team is over. Analyzing all the stuff that doesn't have to do with the games is over. It is game time now. Packers, Jaguars, Sunday, high noon in Jacksonville. They will take on the Jaguars to start their season and hopefully a Super Bowl run. If you missed it, I have the New England Patriots taking home this year's crown. Jason has the Pittsburgh Steelers. We both have the Packers losing to the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game for the second time in 3 years. If there's anything I've learned, though, predictions, especially from us, are sure to go wrong. So hopefully we're wrong this year and the Packers win 2 more games than we have them anticipated to win. Thank you guys for tolerating us all offseason, listening to every show, because as I say every week, without you, this show is not possible. And we have a lot of fun with this every year. Every week I look forward to this stuff. I really do. And now it's time to actually start talking football. I look forward to discussing shows and games with Jason that actually matter now. Jason, I'm done with my diatribe. Anything to add? We have about 10 minutes left.
Oh, good. 10 minutes to fill. That shouldn't be a problem at all. So on the topic of the Pythagorean theory? I don't know. I said that for the benefit of Jay Hodgson, who is a big fan of the show and a former member of our old allgb.com and Cheesehead TV team. He is a teacher, and so that is my funny of the week. No, I mean, it's been a fun off season, Jacob. Thanks so much for all the great shows. Thank you to the Packers for all the drama that they gave us to talk about. Can't have a show without any of that. And definitely appreciate all of our followers and listeners. Definitely let us know what you think of the show. Go on iTunes, rate the show. Those types of things really help us out a lot. Give us your feedback. As always, send your questions. And just know we're following Twitter closely. If you say something silly, we'll probably end up on our show. So just keep that in mind. Everybody have a great week, and looking forward to next week. Some real football. Can't be more excited.
Absolutely, some real football, guys. Again, thanks for listening all off season. Let us know on iTunes what you think. I'm out of things to say, which has got to be a first for the show. Packers, Jaguars, I'll be jacked. Jason, I do got to know, though, I guess while we do have some time, I do want to know, do you have a specific game day routine? Because I do. At least I have in the past. This year I'm discussing, at least internally, about breaking it. In the past, what I've done is the jersey color that I wear is the same as whatever the Packers are wearing. And I even have that broken down. Green home games are the offensive players, and white are the defensive players. So my offensive player jerseys that I own are Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb. And my defense is Clay Matthews, and Morgan Burnett. And this week I'm considering breaking because something, those of you that pay attention, which is very little, and I don't really broadcast it, but my birthday was Saturday. And one of my birthday presents was a green throwback 1996 Mitchell & Ness Reggie White jersey. And I am considering wearing that for the first game of the season. Typically, the answer is offense, green on home games, defense, white on road games. I have the same hat that I wear every week. I wear the same pair of jeans. I mean, it does get a little ridiculous as far as the superstition goes. I have a towel that I got from the 2007 home opener, which is when the Packers beat the Eagles in Favre's last season, 16-13. They actually got it. It says G-Force on it, and it says proud to be loud. I carry that with me. I wipe off the sweat. I wave it, whatever. But that is my game day routine, so to speak. Jason, do you have one, or are you just kind of there?
Great. You just mentioned G-Force, so half of our audience is now puking in the bathroom. So
Feel the
my
power
routine.
Of everyone, child and man.
Yes. Well, my routine is really much simpler than yours is, I guess. I really only have I have several jerseys, only one of which is relevant. So it's always the home Clay Matthews. I bring it out. I lay it across the couch. I don't put it on until just before kickoff. You never put your jersey on too soon. And my dad, when he was still with us, he used to always wear the Woodson number 21, even after Charles left the team. That was his jersey. It was his go-to. He wore that during Super Bowl 45. So in memory of my dad, I lay that jersey out in where he would be sitting in his spot on the couch for each game. And outside of that, I don't really have too many other routines other than being my usual upbeat lollipop self on Twitter and telling myself this week I'm going to take it down and then not doing it whatsoever. Outside of that, it's just a lot of screaming and yelling and pissing off the neighbors. That's about all I got.
Well, amen on that. I do have another rule, and that is do not pay attention to what you're tweeting during the games, and at least make sure we have 2 hours between end of game and start of show. And one thing I do want to make sure that you guys know as well is after the games, our shows will be live more often than not. Again, I can't promise these because there's Thursday nights, there's Monday nights, there's stuff like that. People got to work. I know all that stuff. But for the most part, if there's a Sunday game on the road, we will have our recap show that night. If it's at home, it's a little different because I'm at the stadium more often than I am not. It's possible that I could do those shows from the car, but more often than not, our goal, to use Mike McCarthy's phrase, the goal is to play us after the games start. Or after the game is finished, excuse me. So we want to have Sunday night shows. Again, during the game, tweet us, listen in. We'll get your questions, answers, all that kind of stuff on the show. But now I have had all of the time that I can do. I am actually out of things to say this time, I promise. So if you're annoyed with me by the end of the show, wouldn't blame you if you tuned out. Thanks for listening to the show, guys. Real Football Sunday. Excited to talk with you guys next Sunday night, hopefully after a big Packers victory. Thank you guys for listening. Packers are going to beat the Jaguars. Just say that with me. They're going to beat the Jaguars. Thank you for listening, and go, Pack, go.
Of the Packs Podcast.
Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game ticket from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay, or just go to their website at ticketking.com. Again, that's at ticketking.com.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be hard. Like early 90s heavy metal hard.
I'm yelling and screaming and I'm loud. Roar!
Geico makes it easy. You can review and update your policy or report a claim on Geico.com or the Geico mobile app. Because shouldn't we all have a little less stress in our lives?
I'm not even upset about anything!
At American Family Insurance, we help protect what you've achieved so you can fearlessly go after your dreams. Find out how we're helping others pursue their dreams and declare your own at amfam.com/dreams. American Family Insurance. Insure carefully, dream fearlessly.
American Family Insurance Company, American Family Mutual Insurance Company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin, 53783.